So hello everyone and welcome to this week's Alertus Power Lunch, verifying system functionality before students return to campus. And it is essential to perform a health check of your Alertus system to ensure that it is ready when you need it most. And when your campus is less busy, like over the summer break, that could be a great opportunity to run some system testing and just perform a general health check of your system. So during this time, we are going to cover some best practices for doing just that to verify the functionality of your Alertus system so you can ensure that it is always ready to perform. And as always, this is an interactive session, so please feel free to ask any questions using the Q&A feature. And please also be aware that the session is being recorded for training purposes. But without further introduction, we will go ahead and get started. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can start by taking a look in the Alertus console. And to get started, I am going to activate a test alert in my system. For this example, I'm going to do an audible visual test so I can send an alert out just to visually confirm and check that my devices are activating the way that I want. And we have done some previous Power Lunch sessions on how to set up a test alert. So I'll make sure that you have access to those recordings at the end of the session today. But today we're going to go through sending that test out and then taking a look through the reports and then some other system settings that you can use to ensure that your system is functional. So for the test alert, I, in my console, have a preset activation created, just this one for a system test that I can just select to send directly from my Alertus console. And as a best practice, before sending out a test alert, I do always recommend clicking this preview button. This is a great way just to double check and confirm that you are sending out the alert that you're intending to. So from here, you'll be able to preview what the alert would look like on devices you're targeting, like desktops, or you could also preview the audio that would be sent to the text-to-speech speakers. You can listen to it, but I would just be sending out this message saying this is a test. And then if I do hit continue, I'm able to confirm the recipients or the types of devices that I'm targeting with this alert. So I can see in this example, this is testing my hardware. Specifically, this would go to my alert beacons, my text-to-speech speakers, and my desktops in building 1. And I'm able to check here to see the total number of devices I'm targeting, as well as how many are actually online right now. And then I can also click down here to view the alert beacon settings that I'm using. So I can check the volume and the tone that I have selected for those devices as well. So I can make sure I know exactly what I'm sending before I send it out. And I do always recommend, as a best practice, if you are sending an alert out that someone might see or notice, that you do notify your stakeholders ahead of time just to let them know you are planning to run a test so that they're not surprised or it's not unexpected when they do see a test alert coming in. So I could just send this directly from my Alertus console, but on my system, I do actually have a software panic button that I created just to send out that same test alert. So I'm just going to send it from this panic button here, just as another step to test to make sure that's working. So I'm just going to click to activate my system test. I have it set up that I need to confirm by typing yes, and then I'll click proceed. So that will go ahead and activate the alert. Here is the desktop takeover already that I can acknowledge, and hopefully you can see it here, but I can visually check to see that my alert beacon is activating. It's green like I expected it to be. And then I also have a speaker here. Hopefully you can hear that as well. In a real emergency. But I can hear my speaker going off. My background wants to hide it, but there it is. So that looks good. Everything looks and sounds the way that I want. I could let it run for the set duration of the alert, but since I've confirmed everything went out already, I'm just going to come back to my console to cancel that alert early. So now that I have run my test alert, I do want to look at just a couple of the reports that I can check just to make sure the alert went out correctly. And then we'll also take a look at some other system settings that we can confirm. So I'm going to open up this report section and I'm going to start by taking a look at the alert history report. And this report will display a list of the 40 most recent alerts that have been sent out by the system. So here is that preset alert I just sent for our system test. I can click on the message to open up some additional information. I can see, for example, the duration, the actual duration, so I can see when it was sent and how long it was active before it was canceled. I can also see how the alert was sent. Because it was sent from a custom event trigger, that tells me that it was sent from a panic button, but I would also be able to see if it was sent from the console, who sent it out. So this is a good report to check periodically just to get a good overview of any previous activations. And then this report is very helpful as well because it has these 3 attached reports to give even more information. So I'm going to click this link to view my device activations. This will open up in a new tab and show me for that alert exactly which device is activated. So I can scroll down past that general alert information at the top, and then I'll come to this activation summary where I can see in this example, I did have an alert beacon, a desktop, and a text-to-speech speaker all activate in less than 10 seconds. Those were the devices that I held up to show you all. And then I can also see in the group of devices that I targeted, I did have another alert beacon and 2 text-to-speech speakers that were offline and didn't activate. So I have my total activation percentage here. And I know that these are older devices that I don't have plugged in right now. So this is what I'm expecting to see. But of course, if something doesn't activate when you thought that it would, that would give you a reason to want to go potentially troubleshoot that device. And then if you do scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to see your device names, if they activated, and exactly how long that took. And you can also sort by the statuses here, or just search for a specific device if needed. And if I close out of the activations report, there is also a device acknowledgements report. This can be helpful if you do want to check and see which devices had someone confirm or acknowledge that they viewed the alert. So I can see I did have a desktop that was acknowledged. That was done by when I pressed the acknowledge button on the alert. And typically you don't have people acknowledge the speakers since you're normally not walking right up to those devices. But on the alert beacons, you'll notice there's 2 black buttons on the front. And I didn't acknowledge mine during that alert, but if you wanted someone to acknowledge the device, they would just need to hold down those 2 black buttons at the same time during an active alert, and then they would see message acknowledged on the screen before it goes back to showing the alert message. So a good use case for that would be if you did send out an audible visual test to your alert beacons, you could have your team stationed around at each alert beacon, and you can have someone press those buttons to acknowledge the alert when they see it on the device. And then that would be reflected in this report. So you could quickly just check and confirm which devices were acknowledged, where someone confirms they did see the alert on that device. And if I close out of this report, the last attached one is this user recipients report. And this is helpful for desktops that do have a logged in user. Since this will show the user that was logged into the device, you'll see if their device activated, how long that took. And then if that user pressed the acknowledge button, you'll see how long that took as well. So that can be helpful if you want to keep track of exactly which desktop users either saw or confirmed a specific alert. And then I will close out of this. And the next report I did want to take a look at is this device status report. And this is definitely the best place to go to get the most updated device information. So if, for example, you run your test and you notice something didn't activate, you can come to this report to get a bunch of additional information. So here I can see anything that is showing up in white is currently online, checking in with the server. So these are all those devices that are able to get alerts, no problem. And then if you did notice any yellow devices, those are inactive. Alert beacons or speakers, they would become inactive if they haven't checked in with the server in about 3 to 6 minutes or longer. Desktops as well, it is normal to have some inactive desktops since those devices are normally turned off and restarted periodically. But for your hardware, you would want those to be online all the time. So something showing as inactive might be an early sign, potentially something might have gotten disconnected. And then any of these red devices are completely offline. So that just means that they have not checked in with the server since the last time it was restarted. And I can see I restarted my server here on July 10th. So none of these devices have checked in since then, since today. And then if I do scroll to the side, you'll be able to see a bunch of additional device information. Like you can see the build or software version, the power source or battery information if the device does have batteries. You can also see IP addresses or MAC addresses being reported. I'm just going to scroll through a little bit quickly, but as you can see, there's a ton of information, even information about a last error or a logged in user. So a lot of good stuff here. And if you do ever need to customize this report, there is this blue add/remove columns button. And this will show you all the different options for the device information that you can pull in. And again, I'm just going to scroll through it a little bit quickly, but as you can see, there's a lot available. And if you're not sure what something is, you can just click the blue question mark and it'll give you a description. But basically, anything that you have checked would show up in the report. Anything unchecked would be hidden. And you can also click and drag things up towards the top if you wanted to reorder them. So whatever you have at the top of the list here is what's going to show up first on the left-hand side of the report. So you can customize the report here to have the information you check most often showing up first. And you can also sort by device type. You can sort by these statuses, or just search for a specific device in here if needed. And then if I close out of that device status report, there's a couple of other reports that can be helpful to check. One of them is this group memberships report. And this group memberships report is very helpful. It will show all of the different groups that you have configured on your system. And then you can also expand the group to see which devices are in that group. So for example, if I sent my alert out to my building 1 group, I can see these are the devices that would be targeted. I do also have a contact assigned to that group as well. So again, this is just a good place to check and confirm that your group assignments are set up and working correctly. And there is a very helpful link at the top of this report that you can click to view alert devices that are not assigned to any groups. And this will show you if you do have any unassigned devices that are not in a group. Like right now, this text-to-speech speaker is not a part of any group. So if I'm using groups to target devices for my alerts, this speaker might not get alerts that I need it to get if it is supposed to be in a group. So this can be, again, just a good place to check and see if potentially any of your group configuration might need to be updated. And then if I keep scrolling down, the last report I wanted to take a quick look at is the system activity report here. And this is a really great place to kind of just keep a general eye on pretty much everything that's going on in the system. So you'll be able to see, for example, anytime someone logs in. You can also see any activations or general jobs or system information. You would also be able to see if there are any warnings or errors being reported. And you can filter by the categories and levels at the top. So for example, maybe I want to check and see if any other administrators have been updating any system settings lately. I could just look for configuration changes and then I'll be able to see all of that information, and I can click on the details to get some more information. And then similarly, if you did want to check and see if you did have any system errors would be reported at the top right from this icon, but you can also see any system errors or previous errors in this report. and you'll be able to click on the details to get some more information. And if you do ever need any help troubleshooting anything that you see here, that would be a great opportunity to reach out to the Alertus support team, and then they'd be able to assist with anything that you might see here. But now that we've taken a look at some of these reports, I did want to go next into one of the dashboards, specifically this event dashboard. This is a good place to check and make sure that all of the events your system is processing are being processed correctly. So for example, if you do have panic buttons, anytime a panic button is pressed, that would generate an event that you would be able to see in this dashboard. And you can filter this information by a number of different event types based on your system configuration and the types of events that you're processing. But I can see the most recent event at the top here is the system test panic button that I pressed to activate that test alert. So I can come here to confirm that was processed correctly. This could be really helpful if I do ever press a button and the alert doesn't go out the way that I'm expecting. I can come here to get a lot more information. So I can see the name of the button that was pressed. It was my system test button. I can also see the time that it was pressed. Because it's a desktop panic button, I can see the name of the desktop or the device that it was pressed from, as well as the logged in user that pressed the button. And then I'm able to see these processing details here. So I can see that it matched a specific custom event trigger that told my system to send out a preset alert for a system test. And then I can also see the specific alert ID number. So if I click the alert ID number, it'll bring me to that activations report that we looked at for this alert. So again, this is another place I could go to confirm that device is activated the way that I expected. I can also click the link to go directly to the preset alert that I sent if I did need to edit it or make any changes to the message or any device settings or who it's going out to. I could adjust those settings here. And then I can also see the custom event trigger that was used. In this example, it was number 10. You can also access all of these custom event triggers under the Configure System section. There is a page called Custom Event Triggers, and that's basically how your system knows when a specific event comes in that you want it to take actions that you've defined. So this is the trigger I have for this system test button. I have a similar one for my other panic buttons, and I set up the criteria here. Since we have multiple trainers, I made it specific to just myself. So I'm saying that if it's me logged into my computer and I press my system test panic button, then it's going to send out my preset alert for a system test that I created to go to my devices. So I can confirm that this looks good, but I do recommend periodically taking a look at these custom event triggers just to see what is active and confirm that you do have the criteria and the actions set up the way that you want. And there is another really helpful tool here for system testing where you are able to put your system into test mode from this page just by clicking to enable test mode. And that would allow your system to still process events like panic button presses, but it's not actually going to send any activations out. So for example, now that my system is in test mode, if I go back and I press the same system test panic button, I'll confirm by typing yes and clicking proceed. But now instead of it actually activating the alert, I'm going to get this notice here that it didn't go through. And I'm still going to be able to check in that event dashboard that we were just looking at. I can still see that the button was pressed and how it was processed, but I see this header here that says test mode enabled, letting me know that no alert was actually sent out. So it says test mode is enabled, but it still tells me the custom event trigger that it matched, and it also tells me the name of the preset alert that it would have activated. So that could be something to do over the summer. You could come into this custom event triggers page and then just put your system into test mode here. Then you could practice pressing your buttons, just making sure that they are being processed correctly without actually sending any alerts out. Just make sure whenever you are done testing those buttons that you come back here to disable test mode, and that'll put it back into its normal state. So now if I did press that button, the system would go back to actually sending those alerts out. But now that we've looked at some of that information for alerts and these custom event triggers, the last spot I did want to take a look at in the console here is this desktop page. So if you are looking at your device status reports and you notice that you have a bunch of old desktops on your system that are just cluttering up the system, you might not be using those devices any longer. There is a job on this desktop page that you can enable in the global settings. You can click in here and come to device cleanup. And this is a great recommendation to automatically clean up those old devices. So I have this turned on to delete inactive desktops if they haven't checked in for 30 days or longer. And it's going to run this job at 3 a.m. to delete any desktops that haven't checked in for more than 30 days. But you can adjust the execution time and also the days since last check-in to be whatever amount of time you'd like. And even if a desktop does get deleted, like say someone is on leave all summer and they're not turning on their computer, as soon as it comes back on, as long as the device still has the Alertus desktop software installed on it, even if it was deleted, it'll just come back online, check in, and show up on your system again automatically. So it's not a big deal if something does get deleted. If it's still being used, it'll come right back. But this is a good way that you could just automatically delete some of those old desktops that you're not using any longer, and that can allow for your reporting to be more accurate and also help if you're getting close to a desktop licensing number, it can help you stay under that. But after this, the last spot I did want to take a quick look at are some of the middleware settings. So I'm just going to click this middleware button at the bottom. And these are some more of the backend server settings. And I'll click into Alertus middleware settings at the top. And I wanted to start by taking a look at this notification and monitoring section. So this is a great feature to turn on if you do want your team to get email notifications if there are any issues being reported with any of your devices. You're able to specify recipient email addresses at the top that you would like to get those emails. So you can just put in as many different emails as you need, and then these people would get the notifications for these warning types. And we do also have another option here to notify contacts in device groups. That is also something that you can turn on. Basically, that will notify any contacts assigned to a group if devices in that group are reporting a problem. So for example, in my system for my Building 1 group, if I click in to edit that, I can see that I did assign myself as a contact for this group. You can create contacts in your system on this contacts tab that I'm just going to open up. And here's where I created myself as a contact, and just make sure to add email as a contact method and make sure that the contact has their email address listed in the contact method section. But now that I've added myself as a contact to this group with my email, if any of these devices in that group are reporting a problem, then I'm going to be the one to get the emails about those devices. So that's another option if you want the email notifications to be more targeted to specific people. But once you have turned on the warning types you'd like to be notified about, there's a ton of options here. There are some specific notifications that you can turn on a little bit farther down. So this activation notifier would just send an email to whatever addresses you have listed here anytime that there is an activation in the system, and it's going to send you a summary report of the device activation times for that alert. And then there is next this active system monitor setting that you could enable if you'd like. And this will regularly monitor your system health and then send an email, again, either to the contacts here or the contacts in the group for a specific device, if any of these warning types or system errors are being reported. And if you don't want to get those emails right away, there is also the option down here to turn on a daily digest report. So that would send out to the emails in that box above, basically a summary of any like system errors or status information that was reported that day. And you can have the daily digest send out every day, regardless of what's going on. Or if this is unchecked, then the digest report will just be sent out on the days that there is like a system error or device issue that's noticed. And you can also specify a specific execution time for when that report would be sent out. So that's a great thing to turn on if you do want to be actively notified about the status of your system. And then the last spot I did want to take a quick look at today is the server maintenance section. So if you are using your server, if you notice it's being slow or you're just running out of space on the server, there are some jobs that you can turn on here to clean up some space. So for example, with this disk cleanup job turned on, you're able to specify the number of server logs and system backups that you'd like to keep. And you can make these values whatever you'd like. And then if it goes above that, it would just delete the oldest one that it had saved. And then there is also a data cleanup job that you can turn on for specific information. So for example, you could delete old alerts from that alert history report. You could also delete old event information, like what we saw in the event dashboard. And then you could also choose to delete old system activity, like what we saw in that system activity report. And then you can specify the number of days that you'd like to retain that information before it is deleted. So if, for example, you don't want to keep the log of all your previous alerts stored on your Alertus server, you could decide to delete old alert information, maybe after 30 days or 90 days, whatever you'd like. And then in that alert history report where the information is stored, you do have the option for all of these reports that you can download a complete history. So you can make that part of your process every like 30 or 90 days. You could come here and download this information if you know that it is going to be cleaned up. That way, again, you don't have to store all of it on the server. And if you are changing any of these settings, I do recommend making sure that you click the Save Settings button, either right here, or if you scrolled all the way down, there's another Save button at the bottom. I've done that a couple times where I navigate away from the page before I click to save. So you want to make sure that you save any changes. But I believe that was everything I wanted to take a look at in the system today. I did want to mention if you are, again, doing your test and you have questions about anything going on, the support team is available to help for customers that do have an active support contract. And you can access support information if you click the support button at the bottom left. We have this contact information here. So you can email support@alertus.com, or you can call these phone numbers, both for routine support and also critical support. And then there is also a link here that will bring you to our customer portal. If you did need to submit a support ticket, it'll ask you to log in on the homepage for the customer portal, and then you'll be able to click this Submit a Ticket tile and then fill out some information about what's going on. And then you can submit that to support so then they can reach out and assist with any troubleshooting or just answer any questions. And we do also have a ton of training resources on the customer portal. If you open up this training tab, we have a Power Lunch or how-to videos section where we have recordings of previous Power Lunch webinars like this one. And if you do go to the system maintenance section, here's where you can see the recordings of some system testing Power Lunches that we've done, both for setting up a silent test and also an audible test, like the alert that I activated at the beginning of the session today. So if you did need any help setting up some test alerts on your system, these would be some great resources to take a look at. But I think that was everything. I will go ahead and share a link in the chat for the webinar that we have coming up next week. We have an Alert Aware webinar going through a bunch of incident reporting information. So if you are using Alert Aware, then that might be helpful to take a look at. And then I am also going to take a look to see if we have any questions showing up in the chat or the Q&A. And I know we're a couple minutes over, so I apologize. Thank you for everyone that is joining, and feel free to keep putting in questions. I can stay on for a few more minutes if you do have any questions. But let me see. There is a question. Is the same sort of test alerts and reports available in Alert Aware for cell phones? So yes, you can definitely send a test alert in Alert Aware. You can activate directly from Alert Aware if you are just wanting to test the phones. There is an option in the Alert Aware portal that you can compose a custom activation. You can type whatever content here, say this is a test, and then you can specify who it's going out to and the different delivery methods or the ways that you're sending it out. And then for any of your Alert Aware activations, if you sent it directly from Alert Aware here, or if you sent something from Alertus to Alert Aware, you can check the activations page in Alert Aware. And this is similar to that alert history report that we looked at. So you'll be able to see all of the previous Alert Aware alerts that you've sent out, and you can click on them to get some more information. So for example, you could check the delivery status here so you can see if each modality that you sent was successfully delivered to each person. You'll get a chart with that information as well. And then you can also check the confirmations, which is similar to that device acknowledgements report that we looked at. And this will show you which of your mobile users did press the confirm button to confirm that they read the alert. So you can see all of that information. You'll just need to go into the Alert Aware portal to pull that up. Awesome. Let's see, I am not seeing any more questions in the chat. So I think I am going to go ahead and sign off for today. But if you do think of any questions after the fact, feel free to send an email to trainingteam@alertus.com and I can get those answered for you. But I appreciate your time today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. So take care.